They called it the harvest. It wasn't war. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't even punishment. It was a message. A televised, galaxy-wide display of absolute dominance. 10 billion human lives wiped from existence in one coordinated moment. No warning, no negotiation, no mercy. The Galactic Empire streamed it in ultra-high definition across the stars. Screens flickered in markets, homes, stations, and starships as families were burned alive in their cities, turned to ash by orbital plasma beams. The Empire made sure every species, every ally, every neutral world saw what they did. The human colonies on Carthus Prime, Omega Reach, and the twin moons of Solace were the chosen victims. And Earth was forced to watch. The attack came after months of silence. No wars, no invasions, just peace. Human diplomats had been negotiating trade rights, access to hyperlanes, cultural exchanges. The Empire had smiled in every meeting. They nodded. They signed. And then, without a word, they annihilated a third of humanity. No explanation, no apology. Just a transmission from a masked figure who called themselves the Executor of Balance. They stood before the flaming ruins of Carthus Prime, towers crumbling in the background, screams echoing through the feed. "This is what defiance costs," they said. "Let Earth understand. Let all the species understand. There are no equals. There is only order. We are the order." For 2 days, Earth didn't speak. The United Nations of humanity went dark. News channels tried to make sense of it. People cried, raged, demanded answers, demanded war, demanded someone do something. But no one spoke until the 3rd day. A quiet message broadcast from Earth's surface. A woman with a buzz cut in a dark uniform stood alone on the screen. Behind her, the flags of Earth's remaining nations hung silently. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She didn't threaten. She said only one sentence. "You have made a mistake you won't live long enough to regret." That was the day Earth changed. Everyone knew humans were emotional, fragile, chaotic. It was a joke across the galaxy, the soft-bloods from the Sol system. Always talking peace, always forming committees, always pretending to be one united species while squabbling in the dark. But now something ancient stirred. Something older than peace, older than compromise. The part of humanity that remembered fire, that remembered caves and war drums and hunting predators twice their size with nothing but sticks and fury. The Empire saw it too late. Within a week, the forged cities of Mars began operating at triple capacity. Entire moons were stripped for raw material. Civilian ships vanished from orbit and returned weeks later, armed to the teeth. Earth's old warlords, the ones buried under bureaucracy and peace treaties, re-emerged. And then came Project Wraith. Nobody outside Earth's high command knew exactly what it was. Only that deep under the ice sheets of Europa, a human project long abandoned was reactivated. The workers who went in didn't come out. Not because they were killed, but because they refused to stop working. It was vengeance in motion. Meanwhile, across the stars, the Empire laughed. They called humanity weak, broken, desperate. They mocked the tears and funerals. But they forgot something important. Humans are not known for forgiveness. Especially not when you kill 10 billion of their own on live broadcast. The first counterstrike wasn't an army. It was a virus. A digital one. It spread silently, unnoticed, through every data node in the Empire's outer systems. It didn't destroy. It didn't announce itself. It watched. It mapped. It waited. And then, in a single night, 78 outposts went dark. No explosions, no warnings, just silence. What came next wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. The Galactic Empire had ruled for 12,000 years. Vast, complex, impossibly old. Spanning 3 spiral arms, it absorbed cultures like a black hole absorbs light. Systems bent the knee or were broken. It was their way. And then came Earth. When humanity first joined the galactic fold, they were laughed at behind closed doors. Primitive, divided, unpredictable. A species that bickered with itself for most of its history. Over skin tone, territory, gods, and flags. But the Empire miscalculated something they couldn't put into a chart. Human pain turns to purpose faster than any other species in the galaxy. And nothing focused that pain more than 10 billion screams broadcast to their home world. Not one soul on Earth or its colonies had been spared from knowing someone in the massacre. A cousin, a child, a mentor, a lover. Everyone had lost. And humans don't just grieve. They remember. They remember who did it. They remember how it was done. And then they become the monster that makes the monsters bleed. In the weeks following the massacre, the Galactic Empire moved on. To them, it was done. A message had been sent. The Council of Order, the ruling body of 11 superior species, released a cold statement. Human expansion exceeded its allowance. Correction was required. Balance restored. Proceed as instructed. The arrogance was typical. They'd slaughtered insectoid hive worlds before. Vaporized water colonies of the Helade. Extinguished entire stellar religions with a flick of a judge's hand. None had dared retaliate. None of them were human. In the first month after the attack, humanity went underground. Earth's orbit was sealed off. No transmissions in or out. Diplomatic channels cut. No ambassadors responded. No ships requested passage. Human systems, once bright and connected to the greater galactic web, turned into dead zones. The Empire's analysts watched, puzzled. No troop movements. No threats. No demands. Just quiet. And then things began to happen. First, the star forges on Callisto ignited. Blue light blazed into the void as centuries-old factories came alive, pulling resources from entire asteroid belts. Then Luna's vault, the deepest military archive in human history, was cracked open. The planet's top engineers were sent into its black hallways and weren't seen again. A message leaked from a defector days later. 5 words: they are building something terrible. And they were. Beneath the oceans of Pacifica, 6, engineers resurrected the Titan frames, massive war mechs once banned by interstellar treaty. In the volcanic storms of New Venus, a new fleet of stealth frigates was born, designed to move in silence through dark matter lanes. But humanity's true weapon wasn't steel. It was resolve. Humans stopped living for themselves. They stopped chasing wealth, fame, status. Every citizen became a cog in a war machine. Farmers harvested for troops. Children were educated in tactics. Artists painted targets. Engineers worked 18-hour shifts building weapons no one had ever seen before. Not because someone told them to. Because they had nothing else left. On the 50th day, the Empire noticed the disappearances. A patrol ship missing near the Helios Rift. A listening post in Sector 47 going dark. Then a cargo convoy, 52 massive haulers full of resources, vanished mid-transit. No trace, no debris. Just gone. The Empire sent a scout fleet. What returned were fragments of metal. Not the human ships, theirs. Melted, scarred, bent into strange shapes. One of the Empire's admirals stared at the wreckage and whispered, "This isn't an attack. It's a statement." Still, the Council did not take it seriously. So humanity escalated. Outpost by outpost, sector by sector, Earth's silent war spread like cancer. The attacks were never the same twice. Sometimes cyber warfare, causing life support systems to fail. Other times, full incursion, boots on the ground slicing through defenders like they were made of paper. No prisoners. No transmissions. Just the same calling card left behind, for the 10 billion. Empire-controlled media tried to spin it, called them terrorists, fanatics, barbarians. But even their own people weren't buying it. Whispers started in the outer systems. Hushed stories of black ships that came in the night, of weapons that screamed, of humans that fought like they had nothing to lose because they didn't. Fear began to take root. And fear spreads faster than facts. On day 102, the first high-ranking Empire official defected. A noble of the Sarthi bloodline, centuries old. He fled with his entire house to a neutral moon and broadcast a message across every channel. "They are coming. I have seen their wrath. You don't understand. They are no longer trying to win. They are trying to make you feel what they felt. And they will not stop until your stars go dark." The Council ordered his execution. But his words stuck. Then came the fall of Arcanes 7. Arcanes 7 was a fortress world. Shielded, armed, defended by 500,000 elite soldiers of the Imperial Legion. It had stood for 1,000 years. No rebellion had ever broken its walls. No force had ever breached its core. Humanity took it in 7 hours. They came from beneath, digging through the moon's crust using repurposed mining worms. When they emerged, they weren't soldiers. They were ghosts. No insignias, no broadcasts, just armor black as night and guns that fired silent beams of blue fire. The defenders didn't even know they were under attack until the power grid collapsed. And then the screaming started. By the time the Empire's reinforcements arrived, the planet was silent. No survivors. Not one. Just another human message scrolled into the dirt with plasma burns. Balance this. It was no longer a rebellion. It was a vendetta. The Empire began to panic. Troops stretched thin. Outposts pulled back. Civilian colonies demanded protection. For the first time in millennia, the Council convened under full security lockdown. But it was already too late. Because by then, Earth had completed Project Wraith. What was Project Wraith? Nobody truly knows. Some say it was an AI so advanced it could hijack a starship with a whisper. Others claim it was a breed of soldier grown in labs, emotionless, flawless, trained only to kill. A few believed it wasn't a weapon at all, but a virus that infected minds, turning enemies into human sympathizers. Whatever it was, it marked a turning point. In the weeks that followed, Imperial defenses began to fail. Not just from human attacks, but from within. Officers refusing orders. Ships turning their guns on their own fleets. Entire sectors going dark without a fight. Earth had unleashed more than fury. They had infected the idea that the Empire could be defeated. And ideas are contagious. Even as the Council screamed, even as orders were sent to glass entire systems suspected of harboring humans, it didn't matter. No one could stop what was coming. Humanity wasn't fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure the Empire never forgot. And for the first time in history, the Empire was afraid. The Galactic Empire, in all its age and arrogance, had never experienced terror the way humans delivered it. Not as an emotion, as a strategy. The humans didn't want territory. They weren't interested in diplomacy. They didn't negotiate or leave survivors. They didn't leave behind maps or formations for the enemy to study. What they left behind was silence. And that silence said everything. After the fall of Arcanes 7, panic spread faster than any fleet could fly. Dozens of border systems refused to send troops. Some governors defected, hoping to strike deals with Earth before their names appeared on a human list. Others went underground, vanishing into their own bunkers, pretending their allegiance had never been to the Empire at all. But there was nowhere to hide. Earth had eyes everywhere now. The virus they'd unleashed in the early weeks had evolved. It no longer just watched. It adapted. Copied itself into drones, communication satellites, even the implants of unsuspecting citizens. It learned the patterns of Empire fleet deployments. Mapped fuel routes, water shipments, food chains. By the time the Council realized their networks were compromised, it was too late. Earth knew everything. It started with whispers. Ships rerouted without explanation. Supplies that never arrived. Orders lost in transit. The Empire suspected sabotage, perhaps even internal betrayal. They still didn't want to admit the truth. Humanity had infiltrated the Empire's nervous system. The Empire had grown lazy over the millennia. Complacent. Arrogant. Their security protocols hadn't been updated in centuries. Their fleets, though massive, were bloated with tradition and bureaucracy. Admirals held positions through bloodlines, not merit. Generals waged war by committee. Humanity wasn't burdened by any of that. They were lean, furious, united by grief. And most dangerously, they were learning faster than anyone thought possible. Earth wasn't just retaliating. It was evolving. On the dark edges of known space, Earth's rogue fleets began constructing something the Empire couldn't explain. Massive orbital rings around dead moons. Hollowed-out asteroids filled with reactors and spike arrays. Structures that didn't match any known human design, or any design at all. Spies tried to report back, but their transmissions were garbled, jammed, twisted by encrypted pulses of light that left their equipment fried. One scout ship managed to transmit 3 words before it vanished: they cracked gravity. The Council dismissed it as nonsense. Gravity was the domain of the ancients, theories and relics lost to time. Even the Empire hadn't mastered full gravitic manipulation beyond artificial environments. But then came the battle at Vethran's Scar. The Empire had rerouted a battle group, 40 ships strong, to intercept what they believed was a human mining operation. They arrived confident, experienced, and arrogant. What they found was not a mining station. It was a weapon. A floating ring of shattered metal and black cores, rotating slowly in a dead pocket of space. No engines, no shields. Just spinning, as if abandoned. The Empire opened fire. Nothing happened. Then, with a single flicker, the structure ignited. Time warped. Literally. The ships began to bend, pulled toward the center by an unseen force. Engines roared, but the ships weren't moving backward. They were being folded in place. Hulls crumpled like paper. Crews screamed as gravity inverted inside their own bodies. Some ships snapped in two. Others vanished entirely, as if pulled into a pocket dimension. The survivors, only 4 vessels, fled in madness. The admiral aboard one of them gouged out his own eyes before they even reached hyperspace. That was the first live demonstration of Earth's gravitic weaponry. And it wouldn't be the last. Suddenly, the Empire realized they weren't just fighting humans. They were fighting something new. Something forged from 10 billion graves, soaked in vengeance, and reborn in cold, calculated fury. Back on Earth, the War Council had no faces, no names. They didn't need them. Each operation was designed by a rotating AI human collective, blending empathy with ruthlessness. They didn't discuss casualties. They predicted emotional shockwaves. They didn't launch invasions. They triggered implosions of morale. Their next target wasn't a fleet. It was faith. On the Empire's capital world of Azeran, religion was a quiet undercurrent. The Church of Continuum, an ancient sect believing the Empire's dominance was preordained by the stars, controlled much of the citizenry's spiritual life. Its cathedrals stretched for kilometers. Its priests spoke not just of gods, but of the Empire's divine right to rule. Humanity destroyed their holy site without firing a single shot. They hacked the central sermon feed, a transmission that aired daily across 500 systems. For exactly 7 minutes, instead of the usual chanting, every citizen saw the massacre. Uncut. Raw. 10 billion humans screaming, burning, dying over and over. Then a human voice, soft, broken, whispering, "This is what they call balance." It ended with silence. The Empire tried to shut it down, but the message was embedded. Every time they blocked it, it appeared somewhere else: home screens, school holos, public transit feeds. It looped for 13 hours before they managed to isolate the code. The damage was done. Riots broke out on 4 central worlds. Priests were dragged from their altars. The church's temples were set ablaze. People demanded answers. Why had this been hidden? Why had they not seen the truth? The Council tried to recover. They failed. Because Earth wasn't just destroying ships or stations anymore. They were destroying belief. And when belief dies, empires crumble. Meanwhile, in the darkness of Sector 19X, something monstrous was being born. Project Wraith had been only the beginning. Earth had pushed its scientists beyond the edge of sanity into realms no species dared explore. They had harnessed psychic drift, quantum bleed, and neural synchronization to create something the Empire had no words for. They called them Echo Soldiers. Not cloned, not bred, copied. Each Echo was created from the mind map of a willing soldier, digitized and reborn in synthetic flesh. They moved as one, thought as one, felt no fear, felt no pain. And more terrifying, they retained all the rage of their original templates. Without the hesitation. Echo platoons were dropped onto Empire-held worlds through silent orbital pods. No lights, no heat signatures. Civilians didn't even realize they had arrived until command structures began to fall apart from the inside. Echo soldiers didn't fight like traditional infantry. They assassinated, corrupted, dismantled belief systems. In one system, they impersonated high-ranking Empire officers, sending false orders for 3 weeks. By the time the Empire realized 20,000 of their own troops had marched into human ambushes, thinking they were reinforcing allies, it was too late. Then came the broadcast. Not from humans. From a broken, bleeding Empire officer who had defected just hours earlier. She sat in front of the camera, wide-eyed, shaking. "They're not trying to beat us," she whispered. "They're trying to erase us. Not just from space. Not just from the map. From memory, from belief, from our children's stories. They want our name to mean only one thing: regret." For the first time, the Council didn't know what to say. The cracks had become a shatter. Entire sectors fell silent, not from human occupation, but from evacuation. Civilians fleeing their own planets, terrified the humans would arrive next. They didn't wait to be attacked. They just ran. The Council tried to regroup. They summoned all 12 High Admirals to Azeron. They promised a counterstrike, a true one, massive, undeniable. They rallied the last of their strongest fleets to form a wall of power never seen before. Earth didn't even blink. Because humanity wasn't hiding anymore. They were coming. And with them came a storm no civilization could weather. Azeron had never known fear. It was a world carved in marble and skyglass, wrapped in a triple-layered defense grid, circled by a fleet of 3,000 capital ships and over 10,000 satellites. Its atmosphere shimmered with artificial auroras, not born of magnetism, but vanity. Azeron was the jewel of the Galactic Empire, the seat of its arrogance, the fortress of its pride. Then came the Earth silence. It started subtly. Communications between Azeron and its outer colonies began to lag. Messages took a few seconds longer to arrive. Then a minute. Then 10. Command thought it was a glitch. Then the stars began to go out. Not by explosion. Not by attack. By obscuration. Telescopes and orbital observatories reported that certain stars, long known and catalogued, simply weren't visible anymore. Whole quadrants of space had turned black, as if something enormous were casting shadows across light years. The Empire's top astronomers whispered about gravitational lensing, mass interference, possible cosmic dust anomalies. They were all wrong. It wasn't the stars that were disappearing. It was Earth's fleet, cloaked in silence, moving closer. And then Earth spoke. For the first time in months, the message came not in a transmission, but in a dream. Azeron's elite, senators, generals, priests, nobles, awoke screaming all at once. On the same night. Across every district, every citadel, every floating palace. They had seen the same vision. A field of black banners. A sky filled with falling names. Names of the 10 billion. Whispers of children gasping for breath. Fires that wouldn't stop burning. A voice that said, "You watched. Now feel." Some believed it was a psychic attack. Others claimed it was a myth echo, a form of psychological warfare using advanced memory manipulation. Whatever it was, it had broken them. Half the Senate didn't show up the next day. Those who did refused to speak. Fear, the kind Azeron had never known, had finally breached its walls. The Council met in emergency session beneath the platinum towers of the Hall of Balance. The 12 High Admirals stood in ceremonial armor, each surrounded by honor guards. The air was thick with denial, pride barely masking terror. They ordered activation of the Eclipse Protocol, their final deterrent. Planetary-scale cannons buried deep under Azeron's surface, designed to fire on anything breaching orbital perimeter. They didn't understand what they were up against. Earth didn't invade Azeron. They broke its spirit first. The power grid shut down at exactly 3:07 Azeron time. Not from sabotage, from choice. Earth had been feeding false power readings into the system for 6 weeks, slowly redirecting energy through undetected siphon ports. Azeron's massive reactors had been drained right under the Empire's nose. The city went dark. In that silence, the sky bloomed with fire. Not human ships. Debris. Tons of it. Crumpled Empire vessels, smashed colonies, broken banners, all ejected from Earth's captured systems and flung into Azeron's orbit, crashing through its atmosphere in a horrific rain of twisted metal and black smoke. Each piece had a name engraved on it. One for every soul slaughtered in the harvest. 10 billion names. Azeran burned before a single human weapon was fired. People screamed in the streets. Nobles barricaded themselves in diamond towers. Children cried as debris from their own empire shattered glass ceilings. The message was clear. This is what we saw. Now it's your turn. Then came the first wave. Not ships, not soldiers. Broadcasts on every screen, every device, every wall that could glow. Faces. Human faces. Mothers holding charred children. Fathers cradling empty blankets. Orphans screaming into collapsed buildings. The last transmissions of dying colonists burned into Azeran's retinas. Some begged, some cursed, some just looked into the camera with empty eyes and whispered, "Remember us." By morning, 10 districts had fallen into riots. Empire citizens, once proud, once loyal, were questioning everything. If these were the humans they were told were savages, why did they feel more pain than the Council ever allowed? And then, finally, the Wraith fleet arrived. No fanfare, no warning. Thousands of ships emerging from fold space like ghosts bleeding out of the stars. Matte black, unmarked, silent. Not even the Empire's best sensors detected them until they were already in orbit. Still, they didn't fire. They hovered, waiting. The Empire's High Admiral, in final desperation, gave the order, launch the Eclipse Protocol. Bring Azeran's buried cannons online. Cleanse the sky. Nothing happened. Earth had already hijacked the targeting systems. Every cannon, every turret, every defense array now pointed not at the human fleet, but at Azeran's own palace. Then the feed came in. A single human soldier, not a general, not a politician, not a polished diplomat. Her face covered in soot, one eye blind, scar across her throat. No name, no rank. Just a voice like smoke and steel. She looked into the heart of the Empire and said, "You murdered 10 billion of our people to make an example. So here's ours." She held up a small device, a pulse beacon. "We could destroy your cities, shatter your moons, unleash wraiths until nothing remains. But that would be mercy. You don't deserve mercy. You deserve what you gave us." She pressed the beacon. And for the first time in known galactic history, an empire surrendered without a single shot fired. Because the skies opened not with fire, but with truth. Earth released everything. Every record, every secret file, every hidden document about the Empire's crimes, not just against humans, but against all species. Genocides buried. Cultures erased. Experiments conducted on the weak. Worlds auctioned to corporate warlords. Truth became Earth's weapon, and it shattered the galaxy more than any missile ever could. All across the stars, Empire colonies revolted. Allies turned enemies. The Empire's name became filth. The noble banners that had flown for 12,000 years were torn down in days. But Earth didn't stop there. They didn't just want justice. They wanted the Empire to live with what it did. Azeran was placed under quarantine. No ships in or out. Its leaders left alive, powerless, exposed, hated by their own people. Every day, the same message played from orbit. This is what you built. This is what it cost. On Earth, they built a monument 10 kilometers tall, forged from debris of the first massacre, inscribed with every name, every colony, every final word. Not a monument of victory, a monument of remembrance. Because Earth didn't become monsters. They became mirrors. And they made sure the galaxy never forgot what it saw when it looked into their eyes. Azeran didn't fall in fire. It fell in shame. The planet that once ruled the galaxy now sat in silence. Not ruined, not razed, just abandoned by the universe it once owned. Ships passed without stopping. Trade routes were rerouted. Statues of emperors were dragged through streets and shattered. Earth didn't claim Azeran. They didn't invade, colonize, or raise a flag. They left it exactly as it was, a prison of guilt. Because sometimes the worst punishment isn't death. It's living with what you did. Knowing the ones you wronged are still watching. The galaxy waited for Earth to speak, to proclaim a new order, to claim territory, to divide the dead Empire's wealth. Earth said nothing. They simply withdrew. Their wraith fleets disappeared into the dark again. Stations went silent. Human colonies stopped broadcasting. Earth had won. And then they vanished. For 5 months, there was no answer. Until a signal lit up every major comm relay across the galaxy. No fanfare. Just a single message. We are not your rulers. We are your reminder. It came with a document known as the Directive of Remembrance. 10 principles, short, blunt, terrifying in their simplicity. No species shall erase another. No world shall be glassed without judgment. If you build an empire on bones, we will come back. It wasn't a peace treaty. It was a warning. And it worked. Because for the first time in history, the galaxy had no central power, but no one was willing to become one. They were all afraid Earth would return. Deep within Sol's quiet system, Earth was changing. No parades, no victory speeches, just reconstruction. The loss of 10 billion had carved a scar so deep into human culture that it couldn't be covered with medals or rewritten with songs. It became part of them. In their art, their language, the way they taught children not just to remember, but to never become what they had destroyed. Azeron's beacon still pulses once every hour. Some call it fear. Others call it balance. And Earth, for its part, returned to what it had always done best: survival. Colonies rebuilt. Science flourished. The forged cities of Mars became universities. Military labs turned into peace research stations. But no one disarmed. Not completely. Because humanity had learned a truth that could not be unlearned. Peace is not the absence of war. It is the presence of memory. And so they kept the Wraith fleet hidden. Ready. Not because they wanted war, but because they knew someone, somewhere, eventually would forget. And when they did, when the next empire tried to rise, Earth would be there. Not as conquerors. Not as judges. But as the voice that says, "We remember." The war ended not with a treaty, but with a monument. 10 kilometers tall, forged from the wreckage of the Harvest, inscribed with 10 billion names. It stands on the plains of what was once Karthus Prime, now a memorial world. No colonies. No cities. Just silence and stone. Earth did not claim victory. They claimed memory. The Galactic Empire's council chamber sits empty. Azeron's towers still stand, but the flags are gone. The people live, but they no longer call themselves an empire. The word itself became an accusation. Ships pass without stopping. Trade routes were rerouted. The statues of emperors lie shattered in public squares, too heavy to move, too shameful to restore. The Directive of Remembrance became galactic law. Not enforced by fleets, enforced by fear. Every species knows, if you build an empire on bones, Earth will return. Not with armies. With truth. On Earth, life continued. Not the same, never the same. The 10 billion are carved into the culture itself. Children learn their names in school. Holidays honor the fallen. Art is filled with grief, and grief has made them gentle. But gentle does not mean weak. The Wraith fleet remains hidden. Dark ships patrol the old empire's borders, watching, waiting. Not conquerors, consequences. The galaxy calls them myths. Earth calls them veterans who couldn't come home. Sarah, the Rememberer, disappeared after Unity fell. Some say she wanders the quiet systems, helping lost worlds learn to feel again. Others say she uploaded herself into the Wraith Code, a ghost in the machine, ensuring no one forgets. The beacon on Azeron still pulses. Once every hour. Across the stars, survivors look up and remember. 10 billion died. The galaxy watched. And humanity became something no empire could defeat. Not warriors, not conquerors. Witnesses. They remembered when everyone else wanted to forget. And that memory became the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The harvest was meant to end them. Instead, it created them. Not the humans the galaxy knew, the soft-blooded diplomats, the laughing children of Earth. Something older. Something that had always existed beneath the surface, waiting for the right reason to emerge. They are not your rulers. They are your reminder. And somewhere, on a rebuilt colony world, a child asked her grandmother, "What happened to the empire?" The old woman looked at the stars. They forgot that humans remember. Remember what? That we were here. That we loved. That we lost. And that we are still here. The child nodded, not fully understanding. But she would. When she was older. When she learned the names. 10 billion of them.